Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Justin Abel Labreche, the co-director of the Enterprise Digitalization and Case Management Office at the IRS. Justin, thanks again for taking the time to speak with me today. This is an office that has been very busy recently, I think, getting some really important work done. And, I think there's plenty to unpack here. I think a good way to frame the rest of the conversation going forward would just be, hearing from you about what some of these key pillars of the IRS's modernization strategy are, and what kind of role this office plays in achieving that.
Great. Well, thanks, Troy. I really appreciate the chance to be here. The Internal Revenue Service is on a great journey to modernize its service offerings, and the Enterprise Digitalization and Case Management Office, which I'm the co-director, along with my friend and colleague, Harrison Smith. We're really helping lead that modernization effort in two key areas: digitalization and case management, right from the title of the office. And Harrison primarily drives the digitalization side, and I'm primarily focused on the case management side. So today I'm going to drill down on case management, but I'll try to do that with an eye toward the good work that Harrison and his team are pushing forward on the digitalization side as well. So on case management, the challenge in front of us in the IRS is that we have this huge legacy infrastructure. There are 60 plus legacy case management systems, and they were designed at different times throughout the past 20, 30 years, in some cases 50 years. And they don't talk together effectively. So it's hard for the taxpayer's journey to flow through our systems in a way that our employees can easily see that and support the taxpayer. And likewise, when the taxpayer engages with us, it's oftentimes hard for our employees to be able to have eyes on the full range of issues that they could help the taxpayer resolve. So the charge is to simplify all of this, simplify it for the employee, simplify it for the taxpayer, so that they can work together and resolve these issues as promptly, of course, as accurately and fairly. That's our mission. And so we've got 5 things we're trying to do on the case management side. First, we've got to stand up our platform, and we've made really good progress on that. We use a low-code, no-code platform called Pegasystems. It's an industry leader. And so we have that up in the government AWS cloud. So that's the first part of what we need to do. And that foundation is in place. And then the second pillar is the meat of the modernization, migration, configuration, taking these legacy case management business processes from their legacy systems into enterprise case management. And we do that by taking advantage of the opportunity to modernize. So it's not lift and shift. It's not you had 7 features in your old system, you're going to get the same 7 features in the new system. It's right. What's the opportunity to take full advantage of this technology and transform the business process to be the best for the customer, taxpayer, and the employee? And then we've got to ensure that we're integrating into the broader IT and IRS ecosystem. So digitalization is a great example of that, right? Case management, we want to have paperless case files, digital interaction with the taxpayer. So we're not delivering all of that from case management. We need to have our partners deliver that synchronized with us. And then while we're doing it, we really need to be great stewards of the taxpayer resources, right? We don't want to overinvest in our legacy case management systems, and we want to shut them off as fast as we can. So that's the last part: manage those investments in the legacy environment with an eye toward migration, and then decommission those legacy case management systems as soon as we can, so we can recoup those savings, reinvest them back into the larger IRS priorities.
Awesome. Yeah, there's plenty on your plate these days, but it's a great mission, and it's great to see the work that's already been done with all of this. And so we'll certainly get into that more in the conversation. I think to maybe put a finer point on what you just said, the IT infrastructure that undergirds the IRS mission, it comes from a lot of different places. It comes from, a lot of different time periods. And so getting them all to sync together to get any one thing done is quite a feat. To kind of put a bow on that, how does the IT infrastructure at the IRS, currently support the mission, and what does the IRS ultimately need from its IT infrastructure in order to support taxpayer services?
Well, that's a wonderful question. And I think the the best way to put it is to say that that IT infrastructure is the backbone of our service delivery, both for our service mission and our compliance missions, right? And we have a world-class IT organization. They're a great partner in this. I'm glad to be able to start from that partnership to be able to make progress on case management and digitalization. And so, as you noted, it's a big challenge. It's really important to start out by saying part of that challenge, of course, relies on funding, and Congress is helping us by providing a budget for fiscal year 2021. That's a 3.6 increase over fiscal year 2020. So we've got some of that support to help us make progress on modernization. And we've got a great multi-year integrated modernization business plan that points the direction for where the infrastructure needs to go. And I think we can be really confident that as that modernization takes place, it will enable the same types of service and experience modernization that we're hoping to provide for taxpayers. And we really took a step forward during this COVID-19 pandemic era. We've set records for the number of employees that are teleworking, again, because of that great support from the IT division. Our IT systems are performing at a high level. We've got 61,000 employees working online. I mean, we collectively as the IRS, relying on that IT support, have really stepped forward to be able to continue to operate and deliver services in this challenging period. And so that's sort of a meandering way of saying, like, infrastructure is the backbone, and we've got a great partner, a good plan to modernize it, and we're seeing the fruits of the labor.
Excellent, excellent. Glad to hear it. And to put a better sense of the timeline together here, I know that this office has been very busy, with some of the migrations from this from the old legacy setup to this new cloud low-code system here. And so, what are ultimately some of the cloud migration goals for the IRS Enterprise Digitalization and Case Management Office, and what migrations have you guys completed so far?
Okay, well, the headline of this story really is we're cloud first. So enterprise digitalization case management, it's a cloud first strategy. Enterprise case management is one of the largest cloud initiatives in the IRS, designed from the start to take advantage of the cloud. So that's like a pillar of what we're able to do, is by positioning Pegasystems on that GovCloud to take a full advantage of the things that you get from being in a cloud environment: scalability, redundancy, like all the core aspects of being in the cloud. That means that these legacy systems, which of course are on-prem systems, as we modernize those business processes and migrate them into the cloud, in essence, we're reducing this legacy on-prem footprint and moving the business processes that used to sit there into the cloud environment. And we've got a number of good success stories. And so I just want to put it in the time frame, because I think that often we think, hey, fast for the government is barely moving in terms of what the private sector pace is. But for enterprise case management, I think we can really strongly say that fast for the government is fast for industry. And so we procured Pegasystems in April 2020. We had a partial go live for our first business process in September, and then we hit our MVP in December of 2020. So fast progress. We did that by really having a lot of foundational work underway. So we were ready when we procured Pegasystems, our solution. But from April to December, we went live with tax exempt and government entities, exempt organization, correspondence unit. And so for people out there that are wondering, what is this tax exempt government entities, exempt organizations, correspondence unit? It's got an even longer business title than my office, which is saying something. Basically, if you have a request for information about a tax exempt organization, the first thing we would say is you go to irs.gov, use the tax exempt online system, TIOS, to be able to look up information for yourself. But if there's something that you had a question for, or if you're a tax exempt organization that needed to take some action with the IRS, you can send in a request to the IRS for help. And we want to service that for you. And so before enterprise case management, that was entirely manual. So a taxpayer had to write us or fax us, It came into our Cincinnati, Kentucky campus, and they would, the mail would get opened, they would take a look at that request, and then literally they would use a filing cabinet to be able to assign that work to different people. And so the clerk would get it in, put it in one drawer, tell the manager would notate in legacy system that it had arrived, and he's going to assign it to an examiner. The examiner then would go to the filing cabinet, draw it out, do their work, look up things online, print things out, staple them to it, put it back in the filing cabinet. Manager would go back, pull it out, hugely manual, hugely paper-based. And so we've taken that and we've gotten rid of all the manual process. So you can, of course, still write us, but we also have the opportunity for the faxes now to come in to enterprise case management. If you do write us, it's scanned in now and the cases are created systemically. And we're working on a way to be able to send an electronic request, and that should be operational very soon. And so the front end now becomes digital, and then the case management piece is in ECM. So there's no filing cabinet. We can actually route the work with all the attachments that employees need in the system. They can do some of the research that they used to have to go to multiple systems. Some of that research they can do right from ECM, Enterprise Case Management. In some cases, they still need to go to some of our legacy systems and pull it up and attach it electronically, though, no more printing. And then they can route everything internally, create the response. If there's a user fee associated with any of this, they can calculate that and then send that response back to the taxpayer. And so that all accomplished, including the connections to legacy environment, the ability to get our front end scanning done, to create the digital channels, right? April to December, ready to go. And then our second area of emphasis was around our wage and investment division. That's one of our other large divisions in the IRS. And they have a number of grant programs that they lead on behalf of the Internal Revenue Service. One of those is it's done through the Strategic Stakeholder Partnerships Education and Communication Grants Program Office. And they have two grant programs, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program and the Tax Counseling for the Elderly. And so the first of these helps funds VITA sites. You may have heard about these, where volunteers go in to help people prep their tax returns at no fee. And that's a huge opportunity. So if people out there would like to volunteer in their community, please look up a local VITA site and program and volunteer. And then tax counseling for the elderly, very much what it sounds like. And so before this, these two programs had different solutions. Neither of them had case management approaches. And we've been able to take both programs, put them into enterprise case management, deliver a simplified case management and routing work assignment within ECM to be able to speed up the ability for us to service these grant applications and ensure accuracy and good return on investment. And then the third one I want to talk to is just about to go live, but I think it's really exciting. So, whether we like it or not, there are people out there that are not fulfilling their tax obligations. Some of those are through errors. I mean, taxes are hard, but some of those are more deliberate attempts to avoid fulfilling the tax obligations. And so we have a mechanism that anyone can use, that if they have a suspicion or evidence that someone out there is not fulfilling their tax obligation, they can share that with the IRS. And it's a very strong way for us to be able to get good leads. And right now, you use a 3949A information referral. We call them referrals. And you have to type it out, write it by hand, again, mail it in, sort of the same story, like mail it into one of our campuses. They open it up, they look at it, they say, hey, this looks like it's related to a small business. So let's send it to our small business self-employed division, package it back up, mail it out there. Somebody in the SBSC field office opens it up and says, oh, you know what? I can see why they would say this is about a small business, but it's really about an estate, and it's more related to another part of the IRS. So I'm going to send this back, and it should go over to the large business, an international division. They package it up, they send it back to the campus. The campus looks at it, says, oh, I need to send this over to LBNI, Large Business International. They shipped it over there, right? So we're going to move away from all of that. We've got a again, thanks to the great IT organization, we will go live on irs.gov with a digital upload opportunity. So if you have a suspicion that someone is engaging in tax wrongdoing or avoiding their tax responsibilities, you can fill that 3949A out through a guided digital upload tool. And then push send, or push submit in this case, and it will go directly to our clerk. They will look at that. They'll be able to, no scanning, no paper. They'll be able to look at that and say, okay, this should go over to SBSC, Small Business Self-Employed, direct it to SBSC. SBSC can look at it. And now, let's say it's the right thing. It's great. They can actually just take that and download a digital copy. And in this case, there's still an air gap over to their legacy system. But as we roll exam into ECM, which is our audit function, then it will just flow electronically. Or they might say, hey, it's still not quite the right place. I can understand why it was sent to us, but it should go over to somebody else, Large Business International. And now they can just route it there electronically. So all the transshipment is done. The taxpayer doesn't have to worry about whether or not we received the mail or didn't receive the mail. And everything can be done digitally. In the near term, we're still preserving a paper channel because, as many people do have access to internet, et cetera, but some people don't, and we don't want to take away a channel that is important for them. But we really encourage people to take advantage of that digital channel because it is the most cost-effective way and the fastest way to get that possible report of wrongdoing to someone who can act on it. So that's the what have we done to date. We've also worked on some internal IRS processes around labor relations and equity, diversity, and inclusion, and some privacy governmental liaison back office functions that they may not be as exciting for everybody listening out there, but we've got some more back office functions that we're taking advantage of ECM. And then we've got a really jam-packed schedule moving forward. So lots more to come.
Wow. Yeah. A lot to pick apart there, but it goes to show just everything that's been going on, just behind the curtain here. And, I really do kind of take, I think it's worth highlighting really that the IRS doesn't get to pick its customers and the way that they choose to interact with you. They have to keep that legacy paper-based system as well as, get this new online system up and running. But, certainly it seems like the benefit is twofold for the employees as well as the taxpayers and improving their interaction with the IRS. So a lot of benefit there. Perhaps to drill down a little bit on that piece about the referral system that you guys are standing up pretty soon. Is there a ballpark estimate of when that's supposed to be going up? And, beyond that, are there any other kind of big migrations that are in the works or just over the horizon in the next, say a couple of years?
Oh, absolutely. So I expect to see the external referrals of 3949A up and operational, both the taxpayer facing document upload tool on irs.gov, as well as our backend case management connection. I expect to see that go live in the next 60 days. So we're right on the horizon. It may be faster than that, but we want to have all the I's dotted and T's crossed. And as you all know, anytime you do your first release of something, we will encounter bugs. And so we have really strong internal testing, really strong 508 testing, right? So we've got all the right internal controls in place to deliver good products. But despite all that, anyone who works in technology knows that first release, there's going to be something quirky that happens either the minute you go live or at some point where you're on your third day and you're like, not seeing X. And so that's why we'll work through it, and undoubtedly we'll have some bugs and we'll fix those. And one of the experiences we had from the tax exempt government entities is this really strong post-release support period delivers really high value for us. So it enables us to quickly react to both real bugs, but also experience issues. And so while we have a really strong user involvement because we're using the Scaled Agile framework, we've got product owners on every one of our teams. We've got the end user who's actually using the tool involved in our elaboration process, talking about the need, helping develop user stories, and then doing really robust user testing. Even with all of that, somebody's going to come out and say, oh, you know what, I really, having seen it now, this needs to be in the left corner, not the right corner, because I have a second window that needs to be up over here, and I just didn't put all that together when we were building it. So again, that sort of like post-release support period is super important for that. So, but next 60 days, short answer, next 60 days. And again, it'll be on irs.gov. And if someone is looking for it, they would search on external referrals or the 3949A or reporting, tax wrongdoing, those types of search terms, and they would be brought to that landing page. Oh yeah, and looking over the horizon, well, I'm glad I think I can talk at less than year-long increments, right? Because we're using, I probably shouldn't be talking so excited about the fact that we're adopting this agile approach, since it's standard everywhere across the government, but across industry at least. But it is definitely paying dividends for us and letting us think and deliver in shorter increments. So we're really focused on program increment delivery, which for us is about 12 to 13 weeks. And we can push things out before that, but our delivery cycle is really 12 or 13 weeks, broken up into 2-week iterations. So in terms of what's over the horizon, I think we're going to see a big push on the exam side. We've been spending a lot of time modernizing the correspondence exam process. And as we look to IRS next, and we're thinking about the next look and feel of the IRS and our interaction on the service and compliance side, right from the start, they're using new tools. So I think we're going to see some rollouts on the exam side. We'll absolutely be rolling out new case management for the return preparer office. We've got some earlier stage projects with both criminal investigation and appeals. And we're starting to look at what concretely can we roll out in the next 12 months that would really align well toward the Taxpayer First Act, into that focus on service. And so that's still at an earlier stage of figuring out what the sweet spot is there, but it may be in the sweet spot, maybe around case advocacy. So I don't expect all of those to mature instantaneously, but absolutely over the next 12 months, I think we're going to see some real improvements in the case management side on exam. I think we'll see real improvements in the return preparer office. And again, when I say improvements, I don't mean they're doing bad things now. I just mean to say that the case management should enhance that part of their mission. And I hope to see a wide variety of progress on things like appeals, criminal investigations, case advocacy, and also on the determination side in TEGE.
Excellent. Yeah, and great to hear, the shout out to the Taxpayer First Act, which of course, a lot of the to-dos in that piece of legislation dovetails very well with this office and what you do and what Harrison Smith, your partner in this in getting this office going here. So, I think that's all, those are all great things to hear there. I think zooming out. Oh, sorry, I was going to jump in.
I'm sorry, Jory, if it's okay, but on the Taxpayer First Act, I think the other piece that I would mention is that the Taxpayer First Act, as I understand it, included some additional funds for those grant programs, the VITA and the TCE grant programs. And so in fact, the reason why we tackled that grant focus second was because we wanted to help them increase their efficiency and capacity to handle whatever workload might come up as a result of this increased funding. And so that's, I think it's really direct support, again, to that Taxpayer First Act emphasis on the service that the IRS can provide. So I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
Oh, no, I'm glad you brought that up. So thank you for mentioning that. And, I think zooming out here a little bit, this is, of course, a topic that I feel we could spend the rest of the time talking about here. But, recognizing just how much the IRS has gone through, in the past year and a half now with the pandemic and the ballooning of the IRS's workload. Some employees who have put in some very late hours and some very long days to get everything done, not just the filing season, but new mandates that Congress has imposed in terms of, stimulus relief and economic recovery. How has the pandemic changed the pace or perhaps even the urgency of the IRS moving to the cloud and modernizing IT, just given, the sheer increase in scope of what you guys have been asked to do?
Well, I think first I want to thank you for the way you described the Internal Revenue Service sort of rising to the occasion under some really challenging conditions. I mean, the Commissioner Rettig has mentioned a number of times that our employees are our greatest source of strength, and they are so devoted to their mission and to servicing the needs of the taxpayers, helping ensure compliance, resolving appeals, being an advocate, delivering IT, whatever the mission may be. Just to take us off course for a second, a couple of assignments ago for me as an executive was leading one of the accounts management areas in the Southwest. And so I had the chance firsthand to lead a couple thousand employees focused on customer service, both on the phones and also a pilot program on the walk-in offices. And I saw every day that employees want to do their best, and they are focused on helping taxpayers and being advocates for the taxpayers. And that that is a central part of what the IRS does to really help people. And the last year has been challenging for the whole country, right? And it's been challenging for our employees. And like you said, bending over backwards, working long hours to do the best they can at these challenging conditions. And I think the commissioner has expressed his pride in them. I certainly am proud of our workforce and what we're doing for the country. And like you said, part of that is not just delivering the day-to-day mission of the IRS. Part of that was implementing, major parts of the CARES Act quickly, right? So there's 3 rounds of economic impact payments. That's like $800 billion worth of support to citizens across the United States. And we've implemented filing seasons under these challenging conditions, the American Rescue Plan, the child tax credit, which went live in July. I mean, just the ability to get these up and running from a technology perspective, which I know is our focus here today. I mean, that speaks so highly again of the IT organization. But then you've got all of these employees that are doing the day-to-day work of making it happen. And, we're dedicated to service to the United States. And I think it shows through in these accomplishments.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, I've heard Commissioner Rettig say time and again, how none of this could be possible without the dedication of the IRS employees and workforce doing everything that they have done in the past year and a half to get all of this done. And so, I guess to perhaps put a finer point on this, in terms of the trajectory or the pace of what we've just discussed in terms of, cloud migrations, in terms of things that the EDC MO is able to do, does what we've just been talking about in terms of the scope and scale of what the IRS has been doing, has that at all kind of changed the trajectory or the pace of what you guys are rolling out, or was that already kind of set in stone?
I think that there's two sides to that. One is we did have the advantage of both the enterprise utilization case management pieces and strategies being writing just ahead of when the pandemic impacted the country. So from that perspective, we had this trajectory in place to be able to understand where we wanted to head. And while we didn't get all of the enterprise digitalization piece in place until the middle of last year, the seeds for that, thankfully, had been planted. So we had a little bit of run room, but then immediately are contending with the same challenges that everyone across America is contending with in terms of health concerns, employee concerns, workplace, all of that. But then the second piece is, but then we have to be really responsive to the challenge and opportunities that are taking place as a result of the pandemic, but also as a result of the additional funding that Congress is giving us and the new responsibilities they're giving us. And so, for example, one of the things we've been working on is, as people have specific questions around things like economic impact payments, how do we make certain that the case management apparatus is really responsive to that and supporting the Wage Investment Division in fast responses when inquiries come in? So I think both Harrison and myself are really focused in areas that are foundational. So regardless of what happens around us, we have to make progress on digitalization. We have to make progress on case management. So in that case, from that sense, it's sort of like, we've got to just keep moving forward and providing new services internally and externally. But on the other hand, the two of us are, I think, hopefully good listeners internal to the IRS and with good external awareness to be able to say, okay, there's a new mission or a new challenge or a new opportunity. Here's how we could assist in that. And then try to balance that with the foundational work that's underway.
All right, very good, very good. And turning back, I guess, more to the cloud-centric nature of the topic here, in moving to this enterprise cloud system, how would that ultimately give the IRS a better access to its data, knocking down some of these silos, and enabling what I've probably heard before, a 360-degree view of the taxpayer as they navigate the IRS and they try to get their questions answered?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the heart. That's the heart of what enterprise case management, empowered or enabled by the digitalization, whether that's native digitalization as things come in digitally or by scanning and bringing things into digital channels, it gives the employee the appropriate view of the taxpayer and the issues they're trying to resolve, whether that's on the service side or on the compliance side. And it enables us to more effectively connect the dots internally and with the taxpayer if they're journeying from one type of interaction with us to another. And so being in the cloud enables us to bring multiple applications, multiple business processes into ECM in one environment to make it easier to move the case seamlessly through that with no delay as it moves from place to place. And also to be able to put in that case history with the appropriate role-based and action-based controls, the opportunity for an employee to see the history of that case and then know how they can take action to resolve that on the behalf of the taxpayer.
Excellent, excellent. And like you said, this is really kind of the name of the game, the kind of the heart of what this whole project is about. And so, another way to look at this, I know that, of course, the IRS is much more than a headquarters in the capital region. You guys have outposts across the country and are truly a nationwide organization. How does the cloud better enable coordination between these IRS field offices and give some visibility into their needs, individual IRS campuses, and shed some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the advantage of being in the cloud together is that we can bring front end and back end processes seamlessly together. And we don't have to worry about integrating legacy systems that are on premise. We can simply move the full taxpayer journey, the full experience into ECM sitting on the cloud and have the data resident for that journey accessible. And again, with the right role and action-based controls on particular data elements. So sort of like a concrete example, we've got the 3949A, which is a form to report people who may be engaging in some type of action to not fully fulfill their tax obligations. And that the journey for that starts in one of our campuses. So that's one of our, they used to be called service centers in submission processing, which is wage and investment. So that's where it comes in, but that's the front door. But the people who act on it are in our field offices, and those field offices, nationwide, both in our exam organization, our criminal investigation organization, our collection organization. So it's like every possible combination of field office. And so by moving into the cloud and looking at this as a process flow from start to finish, we can actually bring all of the offices together and say, okay, how can we make this thing called information referral be seamless? So again, the goal, good information coming in is quickly identified on the front end and pushed to the right recipient who can risk assess it and then take action on it as quickly as we can, so that if there is wrongdoing, we can correct that, because that's certainly not a fair part of the tax system. And so we don't have to worry about, we've got 18 different legacy systems, how do they talk together? And that challenge is gone. Now we've got everyone in the same room, end users involved in designing the process with us, and then we just deliver a solution, enterprise case management, using Pegasystems sitting on that GovCloud.
Excellent, excellent. And continuing with this, taxpayer experience thread here, one of the big enablers, one of the big facilitators that cloud enables is things like AI, machine learning, robotic process automation, these types of tools that help empower the workforce and enables them to do more of the the critical work that they need to do. With that in mind, how do these tools help the IRS meet this taxpayer experience mission?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're employing robotics process automation in a number of places across the IRS, and that's one of the key tools that we'll take advantage of on the enterprise case management side as well as just designing automation into the way we build the flow through enterprise case management. And then, I think when you have the chance to talk with Harrison Smith, some of the technology verticals he's talking about around AI, our robotics process automation, some more virtual technologies, I think he's really pushing that future-oriented view of what is it possible for us to learn from industry, from other governments, other government agencies, and then be able to bring that perspective in and think not just like, what will we do next year, the year after that, but where is technology going? And then how do we start to make that a reality even faster in the IRS, taking advantage of things like the pilot IRS procurement approaches, just to speed up our technology adoption cycle.
All right, very good. And, of course, we've been talking so much about, freeing up some of the data, getting some better visibility into that data, and the actions the agency is able to accomplish with that visibility. But of course, the flip side of that coin is, of course, the security of the data, making sure that it is accessible to the right people and only the right people. And so, with those kind of dueling perspectives in mind, how do you square that circle of ensuring the data is open and transparent and available to the people who need it to get the mission done, but at the same time, making sure that it is locked down in such a way that it is not accessible to the people who don't need it?
I mean, you raise a super important point. The IRS is responsible. We are responsible for safeguarding a vast amount of sensitive financial and personal data. And it's important to us, as we're accountable to really safeguard that. And so that's really a central part of how we design our business and technology offerings. But it's also a major challenge, because certainly for those external facing systems, our systems withstand 2 or 3 million unauthorized cybersecurity attempts every day. I mean, it's like a constant challenge. So as we focus on enterprise case management, we're building with that awareness in mind, and also with the principle that if someone sees your data, they should only see the data for which they have a mission need to see and use that only to resolve your tax issue. And so Pegasystems itself comes with a really strong set of role-based and action-based controls. And in this way, we can not only say, hey, here's a data element and we're going to make it accessible. We can say, here's a data element. This data element really is important for an examiner in this particular business function to see, and their manager when they're working on that case, but it doesn't need to be seen by this revenue agent over here or this revenue officer over here. And so the only person who can see that data element for that particular case will be the examiner to which it's assigned and their manager. And we can even go further than that, and we can say, hey, the only time that data element should be visible is in the first stage of this case during the risk assessment phase. And then after that, there's no need to have that data element exposed even to someone who's working on the case. And so we can make it both role-based and activity-based. And in this way, we can really control access and safeguard that data. And again, ensure that if we're using that data to resolve an issue for you, whether it's on the service, the compliance side, only those who are involved in reviewing that and have a need to see it to take an action with you at that time can see it in the case. And so Pegasystems empowers that. And then the converse is, today, someone might have to go to 3 or 4 legacy systems to see the things to which they have a need to see to resolve that with you at that particular point in your journey with us. And so that's really inefficient. And so the combination of being able to lock down the data, but also take all of the data and make it available in those secure conditions means we've got the best of both worlds. That view of your account that enables us to resolve it as efficiently as we can without having to go to multiple places, but then ensuring that the only time I have that view to your account is when I need to have that view in my role at that time with you.
All right, very good. And we're drawing close to time here, and I think I'd like to kind of maybe put a close to the conversation by mentioning something you said at the top and identifying all these pillars here. Getting back to the retiring legacy IT systems piece of things, how does that ultimately fit into the EDCMO's efforts here? And, is there a timeline of when some of these legacy systems might be, put to pasture, so to speak?
Yes, absolutely. So it's one of the 5 core pillars for the enterprise case management initiative. And we built that in because decommissioning has to be a planning factor. So there's 2 routes one could take. One route would say, hey, I'm going to go in, I'm going to focus on building things up. And I know by building things up, I'm eventually going to turn some stuff off. So I'm going to let it organically happen. And that's not a bad strategy. But the strategy we've adopted says, I want to be more deliberate about that. So as I make decisions about what to prioritize for modernization and migration into ECM, I want one of the factors that will help me prioritize will be what type of decommissioning or retirement opportunity will that enable? And so we work both sides at the same time, come at it from both directions. So we have a team of people that are actually focused on that decommissioning piece to say, okay, what are the legacy systems out there on case management? What's more expensive, what's less expensive, what's older, what's younger, what's written in code that is hard to get maintenance for, where do we have real immediate needs for new functionality that we'd have to make that trade-off between investing in old systems or migrating that faster into enterprise case management. And then what will it take to actually retire that? Because that legacy environment is complicated. It's tied together in ways that made sense at the time, or were a product of having to deliver a service under tight funding conditions, a number of reasons. And so we've got to disentangle that. So that team is focused on helping us keep an eye on what we want as our end game is to retire as many of those 60 plus systems as we can, and then make certain that we're using that to sequence how we modernize and migrate over. And I think in terms of a timeline, it's a small element, but this fiscal year we have one module of a legacy system that we are focused on proving out our whole approach, like assessing what it will take, working on the data migration, ensuring that we've thought through any hardware software issues, making sure the business customer understands what's going to be migrated over, and if there are things that we're not going to migrate, that we have the appropriate recordation and archiving taking place for that. So we're proving that out. And then I think, as you heard, that diverse portfolio of things that we're focused on in terms of modernization and migration, that behind it has the opportunity to unlock a lot of the decommissioning and retirement. And so as we look into fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, I think we are going to see these legacy systems start to open up for retirement. And we should be able to retire at least a handful of those on the case management side in that next 2 years. Now, this is a broader effort across the IRS. So our IT partners have a broader decommissioning portfolio they're focused on, with a lot of activity in there. I'm just drilling down on the case management side because that's my window on the world.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces here, and a lot of offices that have some piece of this on their portfolio. But I think that's a strong note to end on, and I think that's unfortunately all that we have time for today. I'd like to thank today's guest, Justin Abel Labreche, the co-director of the Enterprise Digitalization and Case Management Office at the IRS. I'm your moderator, Jory Heckman, and you're listening to Federal News Network. Now, let me send you back to the studio for more on the Cloud Exchange.